One of the challenges of speaking in another language like English is that we can be more easily caught off guard when we are asked uncomfortable questions. Like, so why don't you have kids yet? Why aren't you two married yet? How'd you lose your job? Why are you still single? And the list goes on. So the truth is, we all have nosy neighbors or colleagues or friends sometimes. Or sometimes someone is just a little too curious. You can't really blame them. Sometimes people ask questions they wouldn't normally ask or that they know they shouldn't. Those kinds of uncomfortable questions completely shock us. In fact, you might be thinking, like, seriously? Did you just ask that? But in the moment you feel worried or stressed out about how you should deal with the question. It's difficult to know what to really do or what to say in English. But in today's lesson on Let's Talk, you will get many strategies, many techniques about how to deal with uncomfortable questions. And not only that, I'm also going to give you specific examples that you can start using today. I mean, right after this lesson. So my name is Michelle and you're watching me on Let's Talk, the place to develop your English language skills. Let's nail it. So my first strategy would be play them at their own game. In other words, instead of answering the question, you could ask an uncomfortable question in response. I only recommend this if you know the person well, they're your friends or they're close to you, and if you can control your English intonation. By intonation, I mean your pitch, your rise and fall. Sometimes the way you say can sound really rude, so you have to be careful that it sounds more like a joke, that you say in a more funny way when you ask someone a question in response to their uncomfortable question. Let me give you some example. If someone asks you, what's your weight? You could say, why don't you tell me how much you weigh first? So I said that in a more funny manner and it did not sound rude. Try another one. How much do you earn? You first. How much do you make? You could also say, if someone asks you, when are you planning to marry? You could say, well, first, why aren't you married yet? Again, in a more funny way, you can ask them some counter questions to deal with their uncomfortable questions. Before we move forward, here's something important. If you want to fast track your English learning and learn English right from the basic A1 level and take your English to the advanced C1 level, here's a beautifully designed English course series. These are 3 English courses with over 200 plus English lessons, 450 plus quizzes, and downloadable study material in PDF format. The best part is that if you are a busy person and find it difficult to take out time to learn English, this course is perfect for you. You can learn anytime, anywhere, even while traveling. The link for these courses is mentioned in the description. Watch the sample lessons to understand how this course will help you become fluent in English faster. Now, coming back to our today's lesson, now, the second awesome strategy would be to politely address the question. This is my preferred strategy. So when someone asks me an uncomfortable question, I politely address the question. The best way to immediately respond to uncomfortable questions is usually a polite comment, such as, I'm so sorry, I don't like talking about that. Or you could say, I'd rather not discuss that. Sorry, is it okay if we change the subject? So, ice cream, strawberry, chocolate, or vanilla? Which ice cream do you like? You could also say, sorry, is it okay if we talk about something else? Another option is to say, I don't really feel comfortable discussing about that. So these are some ways that you can deal with uncomfortable questions by addressing them politely with a polite comment. As I told you, this is my favorite strategy. So if you want to sound polite and not rude, then you could use this for sure. Now, if either of these strategies don't work for you, I'd say that then you could be direct. Especially if the question is particularly inappropriate. Then you need to be more direct. You could try some common sentences like, that's a bit direct, I'm not going to answer that. That's a bit forward to ask. That means you think that the person has gone way too far in asking you this personal question. You could also say, you're making me uncomfortable, I don't want to answer that. Again, this is a bit direct, could come across a bit rude, but then you know where to use it. You could also say, that's a bit personal. Surely you don't expect me to answer that. Sometimes if you're too surprised by the question, you could say, I'm surprised you would ask me something so personal. Now, if you want to answer in a very casual and informal way, but you still want to be direct and you want to make sure that this person never asks you the similar question, again, you could say, whoa, are you seriously asking me that? Now, this is very casual and informal. And another casual way would be to say, I'm going to pretend you didn't ask me that. So here you're saying that you almost are going to ignore the fact that they asked you that question. Well, another way to tackle such questions is to call them out, which means to criticize someone or ask them to explain why they are asking you such a question. So of course, when someone refuses to stop asking, when they keep pushing, they keep pestering, and they keep being intrusive, here's how you let them know it's not really okay. You could tell them, I can't believe you're asking that, it's really inappropriate. I won't answer that and you really shouldn't be asking. It's not okay to ask that. And if the question is particularly rude, you could say, that is very rude to ask. You might also reply by saying, you really shouldn't ask people things like that. And if you want to ask a question in response, you could say, why are you asking me? Or more simply, why do you need to know? And this one might be a bit rude, but then if you want to be direct and clear, then you could say, I was taught not to ask questions like that. So this does sound a bit rude, but then definitely quite to the point and quite clear. Finally, if you're comfortable enough with the person, you can simply have a laugh about it by making a joke and not answering the question. Again, for these responses, as I said, you need to be careful about your intonation. So sometimes even your jokes can sound rude if your intonation is not correct, which means if it's really high or if it's really sharp, you might sound a bit rude. So you can brush off the uncomfortable question with a joke, something like this. That's for me to know and you to never find out. So this means I know my personal secret, but you should not find out about that. You could also say, I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you. Again, that's a funny way of responding to it. And if you want to be sarcastic, then you could say, wouldn't you love to know? This means like you know that the person is curious and they really want to know about this part. Another one would be, I'm afraid I'm going to have to leave you in suspense on that one forever, which means you have clearly said that you're not going to answer it. Or should I say, you've more subtly said that you're not going to answer it. Another way would be, you seem to want to know everything. Would you like to read my diary also? That could be for your best friend. And the last funny option would be to say, my lips are sealed on that, which means I'm never going to reveal that answer to you. Now that you watched the full lesson and you have also reviewed different ways to deal with uncomfortable questions, I want to hear from you. So answer me. Have you ever had someone ask you some uncomfortable or inappropriate questions? What happened? And how did you handle the question? Do you have any advice for someone else? Or what is one new phrase or expression that you learned today in this lesson? Well, this is the way to memorize what you learned. When you review it, you learn it. The best place to share this with me in the comments is in the comment section below. I read all comments and sometimes I answer them too. So it's also a great place to share and learn from other people in our Let's Talk community. So have a fantastic day. This is Michelle signing off. See you soon. Bye-bye.